Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. We'll look at the week's top stories, including the Attorney General's fake electors case going back to the grand jury. The Journalists Roundtable is next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. It's Friday, and that means it's time for the Journalists Roundtable. And joining us tonight, Cameron Sanchez from KJZZ Radio, Dennis Welch from Arizona's Family, and Jeremy Duda from Axios Phoenix. We should note that Jeremy's wife works for Arizona PBS. Panel, good to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us. Cameron, we'll start with you. The fake electors case, we were kind of wondering what's going on. You don't hear too much. We're hearing about it again, and it's kind of an interesting twist.
I mean, it's only been 5 years or something. So it's moving along at the speed of these normal court cases. No, but really it got remanded, which kind of means it has to go back to where it came from this judge who says that the prosecutors, meaning the Attorney General's office and her people, didn't give the actual text of an important federal law to the grand jury who indicted the so-called fake electors when they first indicted them. So now they have to go back and do it properly.
This is the Electoral Count Act of what, like 1887 or something like this?
Yeah, you know, everybody knows about the Electoral Act of 1887. But I think the important part here is that it's a real setback for the Attorney General Kris Mayes in this, it's part of them kind of like running out the clock, as Cameron was mentioning earlier. You're almost at the 5-year mark at this point. And it behooves anybody out there to run this out as long as they can, because it's starting to get some distance between, what happened in 2020 and now. I think it's part of a legal strategy now. The people I've talked to at the Attorney General's office pretty confident they'll be able to go back to the grand jury and get more indictments. But again, it's about the time that it takes.
What is this? First of all, what is this law all about, and why wasn't it mentioned the first go-round?
The law is about basically settling disputes over things like alternate sets of electors, going back to a much more disputed election from 1876, where you had Reconstruction era states with like rival factions sending rival slates of electors, and it was Congress had to ultimately decide the outcome of that one. This law was put in place to make sure that kind of different thing didn't have to happen anymore, and so the defendants were using that as kind of a key part of their defense, saying this law contemplates rival slates of electors. Now it also contemplates if there's a dispute, you have to go with the electors that are certified by the governor, by the state's chief executive. But going back to the point about the timing, this is they made, this is an incredible setback. And I didn't answer the other question. I don't know why it was mentioned. They mentioned the law. What they needed to do, according to the judge, was give them the full text of the law. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of a technicality, but where this really hangs them up is not just the distance from the actual incident they were charged over. It's that we have an election next year. Mm-hmm. Kris Mayes is up for re-election, and if she loses to a Republican, it's kind of difficult to see a Republican Attorney General continuing with this case, because this was supposed to go to trial in January, I believe, presuming it didn't get pushed back again, which I think a lot of us probably expected it would. But now, I mean, even if they get more indictments, which doesn't seem like it should be too difficult, God knows how long it would actually take to go to trial. This would definitely, I would think, require Kris Mayes to get reelected for that case to actually move forward at this point.
I think that's a really good point, and also wanted to mention that Mark Brnovich, who's Mayes' previous or successor? What's the opposite? Predecessor, thank you. Her predecessor didn't bother to prosecute this case, which is why it took so long for them to even get started, as opposed to other states that had alternate electors or fake electors, where those cases went on much, much sooner. Yeah,
I just want to add, too, the reason why this is kind of a deal in this case, because remember the so-called fake electors are going to argue that they thought they were arguing and they were doing all of this in good faith. That law that dates back to the 19th century, they would say that that was what they were operating under. So they thought, and that's the argument in court, they're going to say that we feel that we are operating in good faith, and the fact that full explanation was left out in the grand jury is why they feel like this should be remanded back.
Right. Okay, so the Attorney General's office vehemently, I think was the word, disagrees. They're going to appeal. The timeline from here on out, I mean, you got the appeal over here. This could stretch out.
It very much could. I mean, they'll appeal, and it remains to be seen how long that will take. If it happens pretty quickly, even if it happens fairly quickly, nothing in the court system moves very fast. So I would imagine that this January trial that was, at least on paper, was supposed to happen, at the start early next year, that's going to get pushed back no matter what, presuming it wasn't going to get pushed back already. So again, these delaying tactics, and kind of, it feels like a big part of it is just waiting out the election and seeing what happens there at the Attorney General's
And
race.
again, Cameron, we're talking conspiracy, fraudulent schemes, forgery, 11 indictments here? I forward the law. It seems like it comes. Yeah, good enough?
Good enough
Good
charges?
enough. All
Yeah.
right. Cameron, sticking with you, budget negotiations, do they exist?
I'm afraid that they don't seem to, at least not on paper as of yet. So the legislature is currently on a break. The House came in for one day and then decided to go back on break for 2 more weeks. And the Senate is coming back next week, but we don't know how long they're going to stick around for. They're saying that they're on break to really buckle down and work on the budget. So I hope that that's the case. But I mean, the Democrats are really condemning it and saying that this is bad use of our time, of taxpayer money. Hobbs called it a waste of time as well. So that makes me concerned that maybe things are not moving as fast as they should be.
So what the idea is, send everyone home so they don't get in the leadership's way because the leadership's got real business to do?
I
Is
guess
that what they're
I
saying?
keep asking my boss if I could take as many vacations as the lawmakers, and I keep getting rejected on that. But I think at this point, now when you start looking at the overall framework, I mean, there's maybe a reason to be holding back. I keep hearing that some lawmakers really want to wait and see what happens, what the May numbers are, and those don't come out until June because we have a lot of volatility in the economy right now, stemming from trade war, tariff wars, and stuff like that. So there's some uncertainty there. I know that businesses right now are holding off on making big investments and big decisions. So maybe government might be taking some of that same posture at this point, kind of a wait-and-see attitude.
But we saw what happened today with threats, tariffs against the EU now bouncing back up to 50%. What are you waiting for? I mean, every day it's a new adventure.
Yeah, and it seems like to me it's getting to a point, and Cameron and Jeremy are maybe a little bit more plugged in than I am, but it seems like it's getting to a point where you're going to look at, let's just pass a baseline budget and move on, because we don't know how all this stuff is going to affect. And don't forget, I mean, there's that big, beautiful bill that just passed in Washington that with Medicaid cuts, depending on how big that hits Arizona, that could also affect revenues coming into Arizona in a very big way.
Well, that big, beautiful bill has run into a big skeptical Senate, so we'll see how far that goes. But is it skinny budget talk? I mean, is that where we're at?
I mean, skinny budget, baseline budget. I think there's a lot of folks, in the legislature who are very wary about adding more spending. And we saw the last revenue numbers were a little bit better than the month before. But as Dennis mentioned, I think a lot of folks want to wait and see what the next months are, what happens with the big beautiful bill and all the Medicaid cuts. I mean, there's like 200,000 Arizonans, I think, who could lose Medicaid coverage under that. And plus, on top of that, I don't think there's just a lot of agreement, not between the legislature and the governor's office, and not even between the House and the Senate. I know from what I've heard, the Senate Republicans very much want to do what we saw a couple of years ago, where each member gets like a per member allocation for whatever they want. I think $5 million is the number I've been hearing thrown around. The House, I think, David Livingston, others are very much against this, and so I'm not sure how far apart they are in terms of like actual spending. But from what I've heard, that seems to be kind of a sticking point. And then the legislature and the governor are, I don't think they're talking much either. The governor's office tells me informal talks between the two sides have been happening, but it doesn't sound like anything particularly substantive. So all three, you have these three groups, and all three seem to be kind of spinning their wheels right now, and there's not a lot of movement happening.
Cameron, are there issues? I mean, the idea of everyone gets a certain amount of money to spend. I don't know how that went last time, but it went, and there were people for and against it. But is it issues, or is it just we don't know what we're going to be dealing with?
I'd say it's both, and unfortunately I've heard the same rumors. The thing about everybody gets a certain amount of cash to spend at the store is that happened, and some people got a little bit of what they wanted, but then some of it got clawed back. And so then people were like, wait, you gave me this carrot to make me vote on this budget, and then you took the carrot away. Like, I thought I was getting my carrot. So if you offer the carrot again, they might not bite. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I got you with the carrot. So where do we go from here? I mean, again, it sounds like no one's there.
No, yeah, where we go from here, like go on vacation, take some more time, come back. Hopefully, they see some money, see what the numbers are. It provides a little bit more clarity, because again, there is that uncertainty out there with the tariffs, up and down all over the place. And yeah, sure, the big beautiful bill with the proposed Medicaid cuts to it, it could be a resistant Senate, but we thought there'd be some resistance in the House, and it passed by a very narrow margin. So there's just so much uncertainty. I think time to wait and see. I think that's where we go from.
You don't have too much time to wait and see. You got to get this done by the end of June, don't you?
Yeah, I think we got some folks who are going to be out of town around the end of June, so that the clock might get moved up a little bit there. And yeah, we've got under a month and a half here till the end of the fiscal year. And I think since Hobbs has been in office, our Democratic governor and Republican legislature have seemed kind of fond of pushing things to the wire. I think not out of a desire to do so, because no one can really agree or get along on anything. But I think we're definitely going to. I mean, we're probably weeks away. And I know every year when these things kind of drag on, it seems like it's stalemate, stalemate, stalemate. Then one day you just hear, hey, there's a deal.
Right,
Here's the details, and they vote on it. But it does seem like we're still a ways away from getting some kind of agreement here that everyone can vote on.
Cameron, it just looks like there's no agreement to get Prop 123 on the ballot for this year for a vote, correct?
Correct. And Hobbs, we were talking to her this week at a gaggle about that, and she seems to still want to do it. But I mean, there's been basically no effort lately to get Prop 123. And then there was talk most recently in those negotiations of tying it to vouchers. And that was something the Democrats obviously had a huge issue with, potentially something that they would want to put to the ballot as a joint measure, which I assume would face legal challenges if they did move forward with that. And since then, nothing. So this might just not be the year, which is disturbing also because it's another one of those things that has deadlines that will expire eventually.
I was also hearing, too, that J.D. Mesner, Senator Besnard, who's leading that in the Senate, was telling people that maybe he doesn't think, maybe they can get something done next year and get it on the ballot then.
Well, that's nice for him. He's termed out.
Yeah.
Well, it's also, if it gets on the ballot next year, it's going to join a whole host of other things. Could it get lost? I mean, is this something, what do proponents want to see this a standalone, or do proponents want to see this as one of many?
Probably depends on who you talk to, but yeah, I mean, last year we had a two-piece of paper ballot in Maricopa County because of the very unwieldy number of ballot measures. For a special election, just be the one, but I think the ship kind of sailed on that a while ago in terms of the total lack of agreement or movement on anything like that. There is on paper technically a deadline because this money runs out, at the end of June, but the legislature's already backfilled that. That agreement's already in place. They're looking at that source of money from the state land trust saying, okay, we can use this for something else now. And that doesn't really have the same time limit. So there isn't that sense of urgency where they just can't come back next session.
And I think where the voters are depends on what's going to end up in that bill. As Cameron was saying, there was a lot of talk about putting that ESA stuff and enshrining that in the Constitution. Now you're talking about enshrining a program in the Constitution. Like, you couldn't go back and try to limit that program and limit its growth, because there's been talk about putting caps on the Empowerment Scholarship account, on caps on income, that if you make certain amount of money over that threshold, you no longer qualify. You can't do that if it's enshrined as it is right now in the state constitution.
And Cameron, you referred to this. I mean, sounds to me like it's a different topic altogether than Prop 123. The single subject rule would apply, would it not?
I'm sure that's what people will argue in court if it ends up on the ballot that way. Single subject rule basically says you can't put one issue on the ballot that's really more than one issue. And it's sort of helpful for these things because it's like the Venn diagram of people who maybe agree with this Prop 123 extension and agree with vouchers. That might not be enough to get both of them passed.
Right. Right.
And remember, the voters have already shot down ESAs at the ballot box, and you could see a situation very quickly, even if you got both these issues on the ballot in one ballot measure, that this becomes a referendum on ESAs.
Sure, and that kind of shows to why we have a separate amendment rule in the first place. We don't end up with the big beautiful bills with all kinds of random stuff in it here in Arizona. And if you do put these two things on there, is that going to sink these teacher pay raises? Because I think most, Arizona has a lot of school choice options. I think in general, a lot of them are very popular, but as Ben has pointed out, we've seen what happens when you put, unlimited ESA expansion on the ballot. And I know there are folks who will argue that there were ESA supporters who voted against it the last time because of the cap. They didn't want that to be voter protected. But I think that is such a narrow subset of people who are even vaguely aware of that I think what you saw is what you get, is that people just did not want to see that kind of expansion.
Cameron, is this yet another thing that's keeping the budget from being budgeted?
I don't know that this is the main thing that's keeping the budget from being budgeted, but I think going into this year, there was a lot more hope for Prop 123 to be a part of this year's negotiations, and that kind of fell off, maybe from procrastination, and apparently the trend of waiting until the last possible minute to address something.
Yeah, I think we heard that last year. It's like, oh, we can just deal with Prop 123 next year. Like, we don't need to get it done right now. There's always next year, don't worry about it. And now we're sitting here talking about, okay, well, there's next year again.
That's a whole lot of money for education that we're just going to get to the wire. All right, Dennis, this is a very interesting story, and I want you to give us, as best you can, an encapsulation of this. Immigrants make an appointment for a court hearing. They go to the appointment. They go where they're told, when they're told. They appear, and when they get there, federal courts basically say, we're dismissing the case, which means you are now standing there as an undocumented person, and then what happens?
And then they are rounded up and taken away. There's a lot of concern about this whole thing, because you mentioned these are migrants who came here, applied for asylum, asked for asylum, which was completely legal and allowable under American law. They followed the process. They're going to their court appearances. They show up there, and then ICE agents who are masked up. We don't know who these agents are showing up and taking these folks away. So there's a lot of concern about that at this point right now. And, watching some of the images out there, I've never seen anything like that where you have these masked up federal agents out there going after people.
Yeah, what do you make of this, Jeremy? This is an interesting story.
Yeah, well, we've seen this, I think, a number of times from the Trump administration is trying to figure out, take folks who they want to deport, they want to get out of the country, whether here illegally or in some cases here legally. A lot of these people came through legal programs under the Biden administration or before or elsewhere, and saying, hey, how can we expedite this? How can we move this faster? That's what they're doing here. Is they're telling the courts, hey, we want to dismiss this case. And what that really does is it resets the system where you can just immediately go to that expedited removal for people who can't prove they've been here for at least 2 years. And, as Dennis mentioned, these folks showing up, they think they're legally taking part in the process, going through to their hearings, and it's not the case. And we saw this, worth noting, we saw this in a number of other cities, too. It wasn't just Phoenix.
Yeah, right,
Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, I think Dallas and Seattle. So this is happening. We saw this for 2 days this week. Certainly wouldn't surprise me to see it again or something similar, something more. Obviously, we see so much pushing of the envelope, pushing of new boundaries by the Trump administration when it comes to immigration enforcement.
So the question is kind of, what are these people supposed to do going forward? Because you, let's say, are a person seeking asylum legally. You go to your court hearing. If they decide that your case isn't good enough, you're basically getting taken and thrown away. But if you don't show up to court, then you're in violation of the law because you didn't make your appearance. Now you're in trouble if and when they catch you for that. So it's like, are you supposed to show up and hope that you can plead your case? Or are you supposed to hide at home and hope that they don't get you for not showing up to court?
I think immigration attorneys are trying to get their clients to show up and do the right thing, but eventually, as Cameron said, that's not going to cut it.
Well, I was reading some quotes, from people who were family members of people who were taken away, and and they were thinking like, yeah, they're going to recommend that people don't show up. And it could have a very chilling effect on that. And I find like the timing of all of this like pretty interesting, because in terms of like border immigration enforcement and whatnot, if you look at the numbers at the border, I mean, Donald Trump has dramatically reversed course on immigration. It is quiet down there at this point. We have seen some of the lowest numbers and encounters that we have seen in a very long time. And if you go back to the election, his mandate, he was clear about what he wanted to do, but his mandate was he was going to go after the worst of the worst, the big criminals, the quote-unquote bad hombres that he was going to go after. And these are folks following the law, following the process. I don't know if this is what people wanted out of this.
Reaction, I think the governor said something, what was a quote, indiscriminately rounding up people following the rules will not make us safer. Political fallout from all this.
Well, we saw a lot of those statements from the Democratic side of the aisle. What I don't think we really saw was a lot of statements from the Republican side saying, hey, we support this. This is actually a really good thing. We're happy President Trump is doing this. Folks who are showing up and, don't get to say goodbye to anyone, don't get to take their stuff with them, just throw it into detention, no way to kind of settle affairs or anything like that before they leave the country. So I think I'm trying to remember what the actual numbers were, but I remember I've seen, there's polling that shows that, the American public was pretty happy with what they're seeing on the actual border with that enforcement. In terms of the internal enforcement, some of this, very heavy-handed, draconian moves that we're seeing, maybe not quite as popular. I mean, we saw the same thing during his first term, family separation, things like that did not go over particularly well.
Is hearing anything, Cameron? Any
From
kind
the
of reaction?
Republicans?
Yeah,
Pretty quiet.
Democrats, I think, are actually protesting out there. Some of the
Actively protesting. Some Democratic lawmakers showed up in person to some of these asylum hearings in court, and they were talking about it on social media, saying that it makes a difference, that the judge maybe will take things in a different direction if they see them. I don't know if that's true, but that was the claim from, I think, Ortiz, Senator Ortiz, and people protesting in the streets. I think, Republicans have a trend of saying immigrants should do it the right way, and Democrats, but you should enter this country the right way. And that's what's so interesting about this, is it's not raids on undocumented immigrants at places where we've seen it commonly, like dairy plants or farms and stuff like that, but people get rounded up, which Democrats don't love either. But this one is people going to their hearings that they were asked to go to by the federal government because that is the law and they're following it, and then getting thrown in a truck.
And last point on this, ICE comments from them, they're saying these are criminal aliens. They broke on our immigration laws. We're arresting them. They're adios.
And again, that would be their argument behind that. But we've hammered home this point. It's like the public perception is, what's that going to be? Again, they're coming over here, asking for asylum. And sure, that law may have been abused and whatnot, and people may not like that law, and they could change the law, but they're following the process as they know. Of course, that would be their statement, because they're not going to say, well, no, we're rousing up people who are doing the right thing. So they're going to be, making that argument. So you asked about the political fallout. It'll be interesting next year to see what the debate over immigration, because there's always a debate over immigration, what that debate is going to be.
Yeah.
Because again, the numbers are down at the border, so the Trump administration has turned inward in doing this. What's the argument going to be?
Yeah, if you want to see the numbers down, you got this side. If you don't like the way the numbers are going down, you got that side. And we, of course, will be having debates on that, I think, starting this week, as we talk about Congressional District 7, as we have both Republicans and Democrats on Arizona Horizon. All right, before we go on the Journalist Roundtable, Department of Justice, the Phoenix Police investigation, City of Phoenix investigation, kaput.
Yeah, and not particularly surprising. I think everyone saw the writing on the wall as soon as Trump got elected that these investigations, Phoenix and other places where I think some of the consequences for the police departments have been even more severe, that these were going to go away, these were going to get dropped. That happened this week. The investigation into the Phoenix Police Department that began under the Biden administration went on for years. It's dropped the findings, which found some pretty substantial patterns of constitutional rights violations, civil rights violations, rescinded, retracted. I don't know. The report's still out there. These things still happen. The people have still given their accounts. I'm sure we'll still see lawsuits on that. But it means there's no chance of a consent decree, which the city council, I think, Republicans and Democrats alike were resisting. Did not hear, for all the comments I heard from folks in the city council, including the mayor and some of the Democrats in the council, I did not hear anyone saying we really wish this investigation continued. Nobody wanted to. Even the folks who are, I think, are pretty hostile towards the kind of law enforcement in general on the council and that community, we did not really hear a lot. So I think, they've committed to reforms. I think, the city's been saying since the election, hey, no matter what happens with the investigation, we've got reforms we're moving forward with. Stuff, they've already done some stuff on use of force. There's some other stuff that's going to be coming out, I think, later this year. They're looking for a new police chief who I think will be very happy to know that they will not have to operate under a consent decree or anything like that.
Yeah, Mayor Gallego, Democrat, basically came out and said, I didn't necessarily say happy day, but did say reforms are there and I mean it.
I think part of the reason for that might be the cost. With the whole consent decree and the monitoring and everything, that might have cost the city quite a lot of money. I'm talking millions and millions of dollars. So that's kind of not hanging over their head anymore. But the questions of how is the city going to operate going forward is kind of something that we're all interested in, because they had committed to these reforms, and now, do they have to still do that? Or are they going to do it because they had already started down the path of reforming, or no?
And I spoke with a civil rights attorney earlier today, and I spoke with Councilwoman Ana Hernandez earlier today, and I think there's a big question about those reforms. And I was with the civil rights attorney I was speaking with, the question I had for him, is does he trust that Phoenix PD can reform itself, that the police can police itself. And there is some real doubt at this point whether they can actually do that. That they feel like there needed to be some sort of outside force making sure they made the changes that needed to be made. We'll see if that happens moving forward. I do find it interesting that they said they were going to rescind the findings on that. Good luck with that, because that stuff's already out in the public. Yeah, we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Trying to retract the entirety of the DOJ probe under Biden administration. But again, did they want to see a consent decree? Because it sounds like most folks are just let's move on.
Well, again, the civil rights attorney I was speaking to, yes, I feel like they felt like some sort of consent decree, some sort of federal oversight was necessary, because the feeling is like, you don't become there was a bad police department with these kinds of findings overnight, that you've got a lot of stuff to work at and to reform if you want to get this police department back to where people think it should be. This also, I think, is an interesting question, is that this DOJ investigation has been dropped. What is this going to do with trust between the Phoenix PD and the public that they're sworn to protect and serve?
All right. Panel, that's it. Yeah. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great weekend.
Hi, I'm Catherine Anaya, host of Horizonte, and I'm inviting you to join us for a film screening and health fair Thursday, June 5th from 4 to 7 p.m. at Steele Indian School Park Memorial Hall in Phoenix. Together, we'll watch and discuss the